Another chess analysis. This is a game that I played today, actually, that I lost. I want to show my wins and losses because, the analysis don't just help the person watching it, also helps me as well. It helps me look at, okay, where did I go wrong? What didn't I see? So, and things about these games, these are 5 minute games. So, um, while in real time it might be hard to catch some of the stuff, after enough practice, you will start to catch some of the stuff. So there are plenty of times where I saw a move that I probably wouldn't have saw if I had too much time, or maybe I would have. And there was just time, stuff where I had made a move, not saying that I had a better move, because again, time is playing, into this. People are moving faster, and with moving faster, you also have to be, you're forced to be more aggressive in your play. Sometimes. Sometimes you play a more defensive game up front, and then you start to, get more aggressive with your attacks later. So, um, yeah. So I mean, it all depends on the setup. So, but let's get into it. So, and actually, this is part of what I'm gonna start doing with my video. So here is the ending of the game. Here is where I lost, and as you can see, my opponent has a king and a rook. So, and I have these three measly pawns. My opponent has 4 pawns and his king, and it's just like, this whole king side of the board is decimated, destroyed, annihilated, like erased. So, so that's how it ended. Now let's go to the beginning. Let's see where I went right, or let's see where my opponent went right and I went wrong. So I played e4. He played e5. I played King's Gambit, giving up the f pawn that is a known weakness in the game. And how people choose to respond to this is differently. Some a person might come out doing that. You just respond that way. They might, well, no, actually, they're not going to do that at that point, because you would just take back. You don't want to do this, because then you just lost queen. So, but again, like with this setup, the queen is almost forced to retreat back to, say, here, and then you just bring your knight out there, and then maybe they do that. You might. You're just gonna play differently, right? You maybe you bring your knight out. Maybe decide to do that. You do that. Now your rook has a place to go. This knight's still protected by the queen. Maybe you do that or something like that. So that's one way. Some beginners to choose to respond. They get aggressive, and they decide, okay, well, I'm gonna bring my queen out. Let me throw my queen out there. And it's like, you usually you can tell when you're playing a rookie, because they bring their queen out just way too early, and you might not know what way too early is if you're a beginner. But if you have some experience, you realize that this is way too early. And they'll probably be fast with it too. It kind of surprise you and scare you at the moment, but after playing it like once or twice, you realize, okay, there's nothing to fear with this. They're just bringing their queen out. I simply do that. That's it. Now they have to retreat. They just wasted a move. Instead of me, I gain development because I'm moving a piece up. They lose development because they have to move their queen back. So you know, so that's one way to respond. And there's other ways, but this is also another way: declining the gambit. So typically that would be a way to decline the gambit. Some people might bring this knight out here to attack this piece. Because this piece is more so hold on to the center. You're offering up this piece, so if the opponent plays that, let's say they accept it, the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna bring that knight there so that the queen doesn't come here. Because the difference between what I was showing before and me, say maybe I decide to do that, they bring the queen out here, this is not effective anymore. The reason being, because now they can just do that, and it's just like, okay, you can't take back because whoops. So now you're maybe stuck in a situation where you do this, but now you what do you do? What's a good move here? Maybe you pin the knight to this. Maybe they decide to do this. Then it's check. Now your king has to move. Then you, I mean, from there, it's just okay. You play the game how you play, but if you look at this side of the board, like it's decimated, and you no longer have to castle, and your pieces are still kind of here. They haven't even fully developed yet. They're not even. They haven't even, gotten into the center of the board or just got moved anywhere. And it's like your whole king side is dead, and black is sitting pretty. They've lost a pawn, and they still have all their pieces. They can still castle and all that. So, so there's that. So there's that. There's why if you take this, you always bring that knight out first, so you avoid all that. But let's go back. Okay, so they played that. They declined the gambit, which it's fair. They don't have to take the gambit. It's up to them. Plenty of people play the decline line. They practice with it and played it, and they like this better. So, but I've tried to add some more pressure there. If he does, let's go back. So if my opponent does take this, I just swoop in here, and I have control of the center, and then my bishop is probably going to try to take that pawn next move. So, but my opponent did that, where I brought my bishop there. He brought his My opponent brought their knight there, attacking this pawn that's unprotected. I brought my other knight out to add some protection there. Brought his bishop out. What I do? I canceled next move. So I mean, as you can see, like the game is starting off pretty good. I would think pretty well so far. Not too much action is happening right now, which isn't a bad thing. Sometimes you get in these complex setups where it's okay, you have to dig your way through it. It makes the game challenging, but it also makes it fun as well. So, they brought their bishop there, and usually, if the bishop wasn't there, I might do that. I would probably put my bishop here. That way, if they bring it there or if they decide to bring a pawn up, it's going to be a few exchanges right here. But that's not the case right here because they brought the bishop there sooner than expected. So I castled. They brought that pawn down because next move they're going to fianchetto their bishop, and fianchettoing the bishop just means the putting it on the F or the G or the B file. So it's a very effective tactic because the bishop, when they're on this square, this square, this square, and this square, they control that whole file. Like it's just sitting here and it's just staring down this file. And when it comes to castling, like if I get to fianchetto my bishop here, my opponent decides, okay, I'm going to castle kingside. My bishop is leaning in the direction where my opponent is, and that can come in handy later, right? It's like with chess, the thing about the bishop is the bishop becomes sneaky when you fianchetto it because if you fianchetto your bishop and don't move it for like 3 or plus moves, your opponent almost forgets about your bishop. And it's like you make a move, and all of a sudden your opponent brings their bishop back into play after not playing it for a while. And just like, okay, where did that come from? I didn't see it there. It's literally because it just hides in the background sometimes. It's amazing how, you can look at the whole board and some pieces just, you don't see that attack coming sometimes. So, yeah, so I brought my bishop there. Just adding some more protection here in case that knight decides, okay, well, I'm gonna move this up, or yada yada yada. So, my opponent put his bishop here to attack this pawn, and now they have two, I guess, opponents staring down this pawn, and at first I didn't think too much of it, but that actually became a Achilles heel later. So I decided, okay, well, I'm gonna attack your bishop and your pawn. So he moved the bishop back. I took his pawn. He took that pawn, which was better because now he has this open file. So the bishop is there, but once that bishop moves, this rook is just staring down this file, and lo and behold, that's the side I'm castling on. So it's just like, oh boy. So I decided, okay, well, let me move my rook there to try to get the rook in the game, and maybe it would have been better on this file. One, just because it's a open file. Once I get my knight out the way, this is an open file. So, then that kind of came to bite me back in the butt because I was like, okay, now my knight is pinned to my queen. So then it's like, okay, well, what do I do here? So, I decided to put my knight there to threaten this knight. Maybe it's not a smart exchange right here. Yes, at the time, again, we're playing with 5 minutes, so it's just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna make that move because it seems kind of smart now. And so, but of course, my opponent can just exchange, or I can exchange, and now his queen takes, and now his queen is in the game. And just like, okay, well, crap, now the queen's in the game. So now I have a queen on the side. Then my opponent has his queen on the side, and his rook just staring at his files. Within a few moves, I can be a real danger. So, my opponent decided to take, and I took back. They had to move their knight out the way, so their knight is attacking my knight right here that is pinned to my queen. So it's like, okay, crap. What can I do here? Because I can't just, I gotta do something. Like, what can I do? So I decided to move my rook into the game. At the time, I was like, okay, well, I'm at least attacking this bishop, but I'm not really attacking this knight because this pawn is here. So, I guess needs to say I didn't really have a plan there outside attacking this bishop. So, which is like, okay, I probably could have did something better than that, maybe. But again, this bishop is causing me trouble because one, I haven't moved this pawn up, and two, even if I get a chance to move that pawn up, I can't because then this bishop is gonna swoop in and take my bishop, and I might want to use my bishop. So, okay, so my opponent did that, and it's just like, okay, well, what am I to do here? The logical, I'm in check right now, so it's like, okay, I have to take. so So I take, and I'm further weakening the protection on my king side. So it's like the more and more you weaken the protection by your king side, the more and more it's just like outside of getting your rook out, like castling was almost useless or a waste. Because now, like, part of the reason you castle is to protect your king and to get your rook in the game faster. But now it's just like, okay, where's my king side at? Like, where's my protection at? It's like, it's moot. So my opponent decided to move that bishop back, which fair enough, because now it's like now this pawn is pinned, or the bishop is pinning this pawn to the queen. It's like I still cannot move my I have to move my queen away to do some damage, and it's like, okay, well, where can I move it? So I moved it there, but really I should have moved it there. And the reason I should have moved it there, so my opponent couldn't just do that, because now I have to move my rook somewhere, and where the heck am I gonna move it? It's gonna have to move like on this side of the board somewhere, and then I do that, and oh, well, now my opponent just got another pawn, and they're just stacking up pieces, and it's just like, okay, so that's why at the time I was thinking like I should have just moved it. Instead of doing this, I should have moved it here, because then my opponent just couldn't do that, because otherwise now my queen's in the game. And then, as you can see right here with the bar right here, it's like, okay, that would have put me at a bigger advantage than what I did. So, but again, this is about what I should have did, but it's also about what I did and how I can learn from that. So, needless to say, I did that instead. And so, and maybe in my head I was thinking, okay, well, I'll just sacrifice my rook. Oh, okay, well, I couldn't just do that initially. But so then they added protection here because they probably thought, okay, he's gonna sacrifice his rook. You know, we're gonna pretend like this queen isn't here for a second. Gonna do that. He's gonna do that. I'm gonna do that, and maybe just maybe he comes in like this, and then whoop in the corner, bam, whoop, bam. So that's how that sequence could have turned out. And then it's like I really would have been in this game. So I think my opponent saw that, or they were just like, I'm just gonna add some protection there. Maybe it's just instinct to add more protection to that pawn. So, but if he hadn't, that's potentially the setup we could have had. So needless to say, I did that. Um, my opponent did that. I took back because I didn't want my rook taken, and they took back with the queen. So this queen is protecting this rook, but at the same time, it's like this rook can't really go too many places right now. And again, this bishop just sitting here hasn't moved in so many moves is irking my nerves because I want to do that, but then that happens, and then that happens, and then it's just like, okay, I just I lost my bishop. Now, granted, it's like maybe I should have just let it go because the bishop wasn't that important at the moment. It wasn't seeing any action. It was a non-active piece. But at the time, it was just like, okay, that seemed like the move to do. So I didn't touch it. But after that, I played that because I was like, okay, let me try to fin shadow this bishop at least. This pawn is protected by the queen, so let me fin shadow the bishop. My opponent did that. Now, it finally moved this bishop into play. And then I notice where the bishop moved, and it's like, okay, crap. This bishop is now staring down this pawn, so it can come in with this rook if it wanted to, or it can come in with this bishop for a check, where I can't move in that corner. Or actually, no, that would have been checkmate. So I didn't even see that in the game. I was just like, I need to get rid of that bishop. The bishop is in my way. So I took it, and it had to take back with the queen right here because this pawn is pinned to the king. So I took back with the king or the queen, and then I was like, okay, let me move this pawn up now. So now I'm attacking this queen, which again wasn't doing too much because queen could just go there, and it's like now it's check. And here's where things turn for the worse. Okay, so they played that, which was a smart move. They put me in check. I was like, okay, well, crap. Now I'm gonna be moving around a little bit, but it's not game over yet. So I did that. Now from here, well, no, we're gonna keep going. My opponent did that. I took back. He did that. I got there. Now he started to move his king in the game, and now it's like this bishop that I haven't really been able to use all game is now pinned to my rook, and it's just like, of all the pieces to cause me a lot of problems, it's been this bishop. This bishop has not moved. It has not been active in this game, and it's caused me all these problems because one, I haven't moved it, and two, I haven't been able to move it. So it's just like, it's just sitting there being not even distracting, just be useless. So after that, I was like, okay, well, let me move closer to this rook. My opponent, of course, moved away. Smart, because my king can only move one square at a time, and they can move like several, as much space they have. And from there, I was like, okay, well, let me maybe get my rook into the play. Maybe I lose my bishop, but I get my rook in my play. Maybe I can mount some type of comeback. My opponent brought his rook down, and it's just like, okay, crap, that rook is coming on the side of the board. It's like, okay, I gotta figure out something fast. I ain't got much, but I gotta figure out something. So, since I didn't have much, part of me was thinking, okay, well, maybe I can put my bishop here. I'll give him my rook, but I might be able to cut off them from moving their pawns ahead. So something like that. Like this pawn is on a nice outpost. Well, it's on an okay outpost. I say okay because if this pawn was like here, then it'd be a nice outpost because then this pawn is just sitting there. It's controlling these two squares, and there's nothing the king on the side can do about it. But in this case, my opponent can simply move this pawn up, and then this pawn is essentially, it's gonna take a piece, but it's just gonna get taken back, and now it doesn't have that nice outpost there. And I'll make another video on outposts because once you understand where outpost is and how to create one, then you give yourself an advantage that you don't always pay attention to, but it's always great to have. So another piece to the bigger puzzle. So, yeah, so once I saw that my opponent did that, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I decided to inch closer towards the rook, like that was going to do anything. And of course, they're protecting their rook. And it's just like, alrighty, well, yeah. So I decided to move forward now. And of course, he decided to take my bishop because, he has two rooks to my one rook. And I was like, you know what? I don't want him just I can try to get my rook out of there, but at this point, it's like, you know what? Let me just take the pieces out. We'll have a whole bunch of pawns. He'll at least have one rook, and then maybe I can cause some havoc that way. So I did that. He did that. I decided to go this way instead of going that way. But like before, I would talk about finding a weak link in the chain, and usually the weak link in the chain is in the back of the chain, which is this pawn right here. So of course he went from the weak link, and the pawns ahead, they look like, okay, they can probably do some damage, are now becoming a weakness. And it's just like, okay, crap. It's like, what am I gonna do here? So I decided to move forward. He moved in between those two pawns. I decided, okay, now my opponent is essentially in control right now. So I decided, okay, well, let me do that. Maybe I can take that pawn. My opponent decided to take that. I took that. He decided to move that up. I decided to take that pawn, but at this point, it's like, okay, the game is essentially over. Like, there's the only way I'm stopping this pawn is if I'm inside this box right here. And the reason I say that is because if I'm inside the box, every time this opponent, if the pawn stays here, but my king is like right here. My pawn moves up, I move there. It moves up moves up here, my king moves here, and right now it's next to it. And it's just like, okay, if that pawn moves up again, then I can just take it, no matter what it becomes. So, and that's this little square right here. If you are anywhere outside this square where the pawn is, you are not catching a pawn. You're not doing it. So, it's just not enough moves for the king. If the king can move 2 squares in one turn, then that'd be different. But in this case, it moves 1 square, and it is outside of this square. So it's an advanced technique that it's pretty easy to understand. And the more you practice, just playing with like a pawn and a king, you will see that just playing with this square, you will see like, okay, as long as your king is inside this square, you're gonna catch this pawn right here. If it's outside the square, even by 1 row, it ain't happening. So, and right now I'm 2 rows away, so it ain't happening. So knowing this, it's like, okay, there's no point in me trying to catch it. So I decide to move over here. Again, I'm not really doing anything at this point. At this point, I'm just surviving. It's like, I'm hoping I can get maybe a stalemate, and again, like nothing big is happening here. Like I can't do too much, and my opponent is focused on what my opponent should be focused on, which is getting a queen. And now they have a clear path to victory. By clear path to victory, I mean there's nothing I can do to stop it. Like my opponent should not be focused on taking these pawns at all. There's no point. Why? Because my opponent got a queen right here, which is cutting off this file, which means I am stuck on these 2 columns right here, and there's nothing over here stopping my my opponent from getting a I don't know what to call this checkmate. We're gonna call it a back row checkmate because essentially I'm on the back row. Checkmated. So, my only strategy potentially here is to move diagonal here, getting closer and closer to probably the rook or so. Getting closer to the queen is not going to help so much because the queen has flexibility to move around, and with the rook, your queen would. It's kind of hard to explain. I'll have to show you, but I would say like moving closer to the rook and stopping the rook from making a move, making a move when it switches. Like, okay, so I did that. I probably should have just came forward actually. So let's come forward. My opponent does this. I do this. My opponent does this. I do this, and now I've stopped the checkmate, but not for long. So my opponent does this. I Oh, you know what? No, that's not the move. Um, yeah, like I've stopped this checkmate from happening because then I can just take it back there. However, a simple fix is just moving at least 1 square away from where the king can get to, and by 1 square I mean go like right here. You see that the rook. How should I explain this? Okay, so if the rook was here, it's 2 squares away. So in this case, it's still 2 squares away, right? So if my king goes here, that's still checkmate because it's still at least a square between the king and the rook. So that's what I kind of mean by being at least 2 squares away. Like you can see right here, it's 2 squares, right? Because even if the king makes that one move, that's checkmate right there. The king can't stop that. Whereas if you decide to go here instead, there's 1 square there, and all the king has to do is go there. And then it's like, okay, well, you just wasted a move. Now you're still trying to get checkmate. And, if you go right here, 2 squares. So if the king goes here, checkmate. So, but, yeah, so a better move would have been to actually come closer to this rook because I want to try to intercept the rook and stop it. So, and which, once I run the chess.com analysis, I'm sure it's going to tell me that. So it's like, Terrence, okay, here's where you were wrong. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So I decided to go there, and that was part of my mistake. I just made it easier for my opponent at that moment because literally all I have to do is just cut off rows for me, which is what they did. They cut off a row, so now I'm stuck between these 2 files. So and then I was like, oh, now it's a good idea to come here. It's not. It's useless. It was a good idea about a move ago. So, but there's a check. I can't go back because of this rook. I went there, going in a direction towards the rook, but again, it's useless at this moment because there's too much space in between. This is too much space. There's those two squares I was talking about again, and checkmate. So back rank checkmate. So so yeah, so that's that game. There's a lot of things to take away from here. But again, you're playing with how much time did I have? Okay, I had a minute and 41 seconds. My opponent had 2 minutes and 25 seconds. So you're playing again. These games are 5 minute games, so you're moving quickly, you're thinking fast, and you're relying on your instincts because you have so little time. It's like there's this game on TV called 25 Words, and you have to describe the word in 25 words, or you have to describe 5 words in 25 words or less. And it's like when you have to simplify things, you have to be aggressive and go for, okay, what is the simplest thing to do? And sometimes that simple move you make is like it's a good move. Sometimes it's a terrible move. Um, Sometimes you make a bad move, your opponent doesn't see it. I've had that happen to me plenty of times. Where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, I got lucky, and it's because of the time. But of course, like again, you don't want to rely on time. I mean, it's great if you win a game by that, but winning by checkmate just feels so much more better. It feels like true victory. Winning by time is good if you're losing, or you can say a win's a win. But we tend to think of winning like a team outscoring another team, like in basketball or something. Like where there's no overtime. There's no such thing as a tie game. Like this game has to end, somebody has to win, type of deal. So, and winning by time feels like you kind of cheated your way to win. For some people, again, some people it's just like they just want to win. Me, I'm not looking for that type of easy win. I'm looking for like an actual win. I would rather be checkmated, or somehow, some way there's a draw forced, or I get a draw, than lose by time or even win by time. I would rather checkmate somebody than win by time, because again, it's just like I guess if I win by time, I don't know, it just doesn't feel good. If I lose by time, it's just like, okay, I was thinking a little bit too much. So, and after a while, it's just like if you're running out of time, and it's like, okay, you have a plan. It's like, okay, you just make moves as fast as you can, because it's like, okay, time's running out. So that type of deal. But yes. So that is how I lost this game, and saw a few things I could have picked up there, and yeah. So I hope you learned something from this. I definitely, excuse me, learned something from this, and yeah, no, we're gonna keep it going. So, but thank you for tuning in for some chess analysis. Um, Again, keep in mind that every little piece in here is part of a bigger puzzle, and we want to know how the pieces work and how they work together, so we can see the bigger puzzle. So one thing to keep in mind, another thing to keep in mind is that checkmate is truly a few moves away. So the better we kind of get those pieces, we know how those pieces work and how they work together, the faster we would kind of recognize checkmate. It's like, I've gotten checkmate in like 20 moves, and it's just like we were barely in the middle game. Like we barely get pieces developed. It's just like, okay, I had pieces I was playing aggressively. I had a piece out. I was controlling a certain square for certain squares, and it was just like, okay, like I see a checkmate here, and it's like in a few moves I see a checkmate. It's like, okay, I need to go for it, and you go for it and you win. And but it's just like that recognition. So, and this is playing a game and then doing puzzles. Doing puzzles help you see the board better. Like they put you in different setups, not your game, somebody else's game. Like you know, imagine, two people are playing, and all of a sudden you're waiting to play a game, and one person has to leave, and all of a sudden you have to. This is your board, and all of a sudden you have to just solve it. And it's like playing those puzzles. It's kind of like that, where it's just like, okay, I see some good here, I see some bad here. We're gonna see how to make this work. And it's like you play a few moves, and it's like, oh, there's a good move here. I think I got something, type of deal. Like, whose turn is it? Okay, that was Black's turn. I don't know if I did that next move, but this might have been a good move to do. And Black would have did that, and I never would have had to worry about that whole bishop fiasco. And maybe my opponent would have. I don't know what my opponent could have done. It can't put me in check here, or here, or here. So it's like the queen is just kind of stuck there. So then it's just like, okay, well now I can maybe play around um, here. It's not gonna let me, but maybe I can play around here with this rook and put it like right here and drive this queen away. They still had castled at that point, so it's a whole bunch of different stuff. But playing the puzzles again is like doing that. It's like, okay, what is the setup here? It's like, okay, how do I take advantage of the setup here? That's a terrible setup. Like this. It's like, okay, what can I do to make this, better setup? Like every time you do a puzzle, that's what it's like. It's like you feel like you're taking over somebody's game, trying to play either what they played or play a better move than what they played, something they didn't see, but you get the knowledge from it. So, but yeah, that's it for this video. And yeah, I hope you've learned something from that. And I will upload this soon. And yeah, I'll be doing more analysis like that. And my, I think my new thing is showing the ending before the beginning. That way, you can kind of see how things end, and we work backwards, and it's reverse engineered to get it to a certain point. So eventually, I'm going to develop my own style of making these videos, and then I'll upload them to YouTube, and yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, that makes the channel kind of grow some because I'm looking at it from a different angle. But either way, as long as there's one person out there watching the channel and they're learning something, it's good enough for me. So, but all right, take care.